Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
The Pirate King's Family by Straw Hatter 1. A series of one-shots following the lives of Monkey D. Luffy, Boa Hancock, and their daughter, Monkey D. Lucy. Adios.
As the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, casting a golden glow across the sea, the perfume Yuta gently rocked in the calm morning waters. Hancock found herself alone in her bed as she rolled over, feeling the space where Luffy had been just a few moments earlier. The night before had been filled with their passion and vulnerability, a change to their usual adventures and battles. As she sat up, the remnants of their night still clinging to her, she noticed Luffy across the room, putting on his signature straw hat and vest, preparing himself for the day ahead. Her heart skipped as she attempted to voice the storm of emotions she was feeling. "Darling, about last night," her words faltered, caught between the desire to express her feelings and the uncertainty of how to proceed. Luffy, with a puzzled scratch of his head, turned towards Hancock, his smile bright. Unaware of the depth of Hancock's reflections, he responded with genuine warmth, "Yeah, last night was awesome. Thanks for everything, Hancock." His words a simple expression of gratitude, untouched by the complexities of the previous night's emotions. Drawing in a deep breath, Hancock navigated the feelings within her, delight mixed with a touch of concern and a whirlwind of astonishment. "Luffy, dear, do you truly understand what occurred between us?" she ventured, her tone soft, searching for any sign of understanding in her husband's ever-joyful gaze. Luffy's smile only broadened, his eyes sparkling with the same ease and enthusiasm that seemed to guide his every adventure. "Sure, it was a blast. You're incredible, Hancock," he exclaimed, his acknowledgement skating blissfully over the surface of Hancock's deeper implications. The Empress found herself both frustrated and endeared by his guileless nature. With a resigned sigh, she chose to embrace the simplicity of his perspective, letting the significance of their shared moment linger in her heart unspoken. "Indeed, it was," she softly conceded, allowing a genuine smile to ease the conflict within her, treasuring the bond they shared beyond words. As the sun rose higher in the sky, bathing the perfume Yuta in a warm glow, the crew's morning routines brought the ship to life. Amidst this bustle, Luffy emerged from Hancock's quarters, their shared morning giving way to his inevitable goodbye. Pausing at the ship's edge, ready to spring back to the Thousand Sunny, Luffy turned, capturing his wife in a spontaneous hug. "Time to go, but I'll be back before you know it," he said, his voice filled with the usual mix of excitement and a hint of reluctance at leaving her side. Hancock, drawn into the circle of Luffy's arms, leaned into the hug, her voice soft, "Just be careful, Luffy. You must come back to me, promise?" Luffy's response came with an easy smile. "Of course, I always do, don't I?" He stepped back, readying himself with his usual enthusiasm. With that, he launched himself back to his awaiting crew, his laughter trailing behind him. Hancock remained at the railing, watching him disappear into the distance. Her voice was only a whisper, carried away by the sea breeze. "Safe travels, my love. Please come back to me soon." A month had passed since that incredible evening, leaving Hancock to tend to her duties on Amazon Lily. The days had flowed into each other, a blend of routine and occasional pang of loneliness. It was during one of her travels around the island that Hancock found herself grappling with an unfamiliar sensation. Her usually impeccable intuition seemed clouded, her body sending her signals she couldn't quite decipher. After several days of silent contemplation, she sought the wisdom of the island's most revered healer, Belladonna. Belladonna's home was a sanctuary of knowledge and ancient remedies. Hancock, feeling every bit the vulnerable woman she was at that moment, stepped into the dimly lit interior, her heart thrumming with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "Empress," she greeted, her eyes sharp as her gaze scanned over Hancock silently. "What brings you to my home? Did you forget I could come to you?" Hancock hesitated, the words catching in her throat. She had faced down fearsome enemies without flinching, but articulating her concerns now felt like navigating uncharted waters. I feel different right now," she began, each word measured. "I have these symptoms which I can no longer ignore." The healer listened intently, nodding at Hancock to continue. As Hancock recounted the unusual signs she'd been experiencing, A storm of thoughts raged within her. Could it be her illness returning? The thought was quickly dismissed. Her love for Luffy and marriage to him cured her of that ailment. However, in his absence, a part of her wondered if the emptiness she felt had reignited the old curse. The mix of physical symptoms and emotional turmoil left her grappling with uncertainty, a rare state for the pirate empress. Belladonna's calm demeanor provided a stark contrast to Hancock's internal turmoil. After listening intently, she rose from her seat, her gaze meeting Hancock's. "May I?" she requested, seeking permission for a closer examination. Hancock nodded, a silent agreement, her heart pounding with apprehension. With practiced ease, the Belladonna conducted her examination, her touch gentle. The room was filled with anticipation, the quiet only broken by the soft rustle of leaves outside. Finally, she stepped back, her expression one of serene confidence. "Empress," she began, her voice carrying a blend of reverence and warmth. "I believe congratulations are in order. You're with child." The words echoed in the silence, a beacon of unexpected joy in the midst of Hancock's sea of doubts. The revelation created a whirlwind of emotions. Fear of the unknown, loneliness without Luffy, but above all a growing sense of excitement. The notion of carrying Luffy's child, of nurturing a new life together, was both exhilarating and daunting. Hancock started, caught between elation and concern. "Please, let's keep this between us, for now." Her request was a plea, born out of a desire to navigate this new reality on her own terms, at least for a little while. Belladonna nodded, understanding the weight of the secret she was being asked to keep. "Of course, Empress, but remember, this isn't something that can remain hidden forever. Especially not from the prying eyes of the world or from your husband." At the mention of her beloved husband, Hancock's thoughts returned to the shared night that now seemed more bittersweet than ever. In Luffy's absence, the loneliness was palpable, but the knowledge of their growing family ignited a spark of hope within her. As she walked back to her quarters within the palace, a thread of longing wove through her heart. She yearned for Luffy's swift and safe return to her side, to share this news with him, to face the future together. For now, she would carry this secret, a beacon of their love and a testament to their unbreakable bond. Before dawn broke over Amazon Lily, the third month of Hancock's pregnancy brought with it a host of new challenges, one of which was her struggle with morning sickness. The Empress found herself navigating through bouts of nausea that hit her with the suddenness of a storm at sea. On this particular morning, Hancock woke to the familiar and unwelcome sensation of queasiness. Salome, ever watchful, sensed the discomfort of her companion and slithered swiftly to alert Mari and Sonia. They followed the snake back to Hancock's chambers, concern etching their faces. Upon entering, they were met with the sight of Hancock clutching her stomach as she battled with her morning sickness. "Big sister, please, let us help," Mari said softly as she went to gather a basin. Meanwhile, Sonia stayed by Hancock's side, her hands rubbing Hancock's back in small, soothing circles. "Would you like some tea? It might ease the nausea," Sonia chimed in. Hancock offered a faint nod, a silent plea for any relief. As Sonia hurried to prepare the tea, Mari considered finding the island's best doctor, Belladonna. "She will know what to do," Mari proposed, ready to sprint to the island's healer at a moment's notice. Upon Sonia's return with the tea, and before Mari could leave to go find Belladonna, Hancock, her voice barely above a whisper, interjected. "I don't need Belladonna. Not for this," she disclosed. We already know what's happening." Encouraged by Sonia's unspoken understanding, Hancock accepted the tea, allowing its warmth and the herbal properties to work their subtle magic. With each slow sip, the nausea began to subside, allowing Hancock to share what had been going on. "I'm carrying Luffy's child," she revealed, the weight of her announcement encapsulated in the silence that followed. Mari and Sonia remained still for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of Hancock's words. The revelation, so unexpected and yet so momentous, shifted the atmosphere of the room. Mari, the first to break the silence, approached Hancock with a gentle smile. "This is wonderful news," she exclaimed, "you're going to be a great mother." Sonia, too, overcame her initial shock, her face brightening with a smile that matched Mary's in its sincerity. "We're going to be aunts," she added, her voice tinged with excitement. Does Luffy know?" Hancock shook her head slowly, her eyes reflecting a mix of emotions. "Not yet. He's still in the new world, and I haven't found the right moment to tell him, she confessed, the complexity of her feelings evident in her voice. The sisters exchanged a glance, understanding the delicacy of the situation. He'll be overjoyed. You both will make wonderful parents, Mari reassured. However, Sonia chimed in, we need to ensure you're taking care of yourself, especially now. You're not alone in this. The room, once heavy with anticipation and uncertainty, now buzzed with a newfound energy. Plans for the future, for Hancock and her unborn child, began to take shape. Hancock felt a weight lift off her shoulders with her sister's acceptance and support. A smile, genuine and grateful, spread across her face. Thank you, she said simply, the word carrying with it a depth of gratitude. We have much to prepare for. In her 4th month of pregnancy, as the life within her grew and her connection to it deepened, Hancock found herself yearning for comfort and tranquility. It was during this time that whispers reached her of an island renowned for its healing hot springs and baths, a sanctuary that promised relief and rejuvenation for both mind and body. With her sister's encouragement and the promise of a brief respite from her duties, Hancock set sail for the island, her heart filled with the hope of easing the physical strains of her pregnancy. As she settled into the warm embrace of the hot spring, the tension and discomfort of the past months began to melt away. Enclosed in the privacy of the outdoor stone walls, Hancock allowed herself a moment of vulnerability as her sisters, along with Elder Nyan, stood guard on the other side of the doors. It was a moment of peace, rare and precious. A brief escape from the complexities of her life as an empress and a soon-to-be mother. It wasn't long, however, before her tranquility was shattered by an unexpected commotion. From within the calm waters, her peaceful solitude was abruptly interrupted by the sound of someone hurtling through a tube connected to the bath. When he finally surfaced, Hancock couldn't believe her eyes. Am I dreaming, darling? After Luffy managed to wipe his eyes so he could see again, his familiar voice rang out. Hancock, he exclaimed, a mix of surprise and delight in his voice as he popped up in the water right in front of her. Hancock's initial shock gave way to a surge of emotions. Luffy, you must have heard I was here and came to find me, she responded, her voice filled with its usual affection for her husband. Luffy showed Hancock his characteristic grin. Actually, we just stopped to refill our cola supply, he admitted, oblivious to the implications of his unexpected entrance. However, his joy at seeing his wife again so soon was unmistakable. But I'm really happy to see you, Hancock. In the serene ambiance of their unexpected reunion, Luffy's attention inevitably drifted to Hancock's noticeably rounded stomach, his expression morphing into one of curious confusion. For a moment, he pondered the change, his straightforward mind teetering on the brink of an innocent but potentially tactless observation. Hancock, have you been eating a lot? He began, his voice trailing off as he gestured towards her midsection, his usual cluelessness about to make an appearance. Hancock, understanding immediately where her husband's thoughts were leading, interjected quickly, her voice laced with a mixture of amusement and shock. Luffy, darling, there's something I need to tell you, though it should seem rather obvious now, she said, her hand resting protectively over her stomach, ready to unveil the monumental news of their impending parenthood. However, before she could continue, their reunion was abruptly interrupted by the sounds of conflict resonating from beyond the bath's secluded walls. Sonia, Mari, and Elder Nyan's voices, mingled with those of strangers, the precursor to an imminent attack. Suddenly, the doors to the bathhouse burst open, revealing members of the Cider Guild, their intentions clear as they fixed their gaze upon Hancock. The shock of their aggressive intrusion was compounded by their realization that Luffy was present with a bathing Hancock. Luffy's instincts kicked in, his body tensing in preparation for the confrontation, even as his mind raced to process Hancock's partially disclosed news. The situation escalated rapidly, the bathhouse transforming from a place of peace to a battleground. As they fired their carbonated weapons at the couple, Luffy sprang into action, positioning himself protectively in front of Hancock. With a swift inhale, he expanded into his gum-gum balloon form, effectively repelling the onslaught and shielding Hancock from the brunt of the attack. As the mist settled, Luffy deflated back to his normal size, his arms still protectively extended in front of Hancock. Luffy, are you alright? Her concern was palpable, her voice carrying over the din but meant only for Luffy. I'm fine, Luffy reassured her, his voice quiet, intended only for her ears. I just don't want them to see your back. I got this. At the front of the Cider Guild, Ginger, the leader of this group, called out. Playing the hero, Straw Hat? You're only doing this to impress that hot lady. Hancock's patience snapped as she overheard the disrespectful comment. Rising to her full stature, drawing gasps and cheers from the members of their enemies, Hancock declared with an icy calm, while I do appreciate your concern, Luffy, it's quite rude to interrupt a lady's bath. I believe I'll handle this one myself. Her eyes narrowed, a clear warning of the retribution that was about to unfold. Ignoring the threat in Hancock's words, the attackers brazenly continued to leer at her, their audacity fueling Luffy's rising anger. He clenched his fists, barely containing his growing irritation and jealousy. If Hancock didn't act fast to silence their crude remarks, he was ready to make sure no one disrespected and stared at his wife further. Shaking off his own lustful thoughts, Ginger snapped back into command. Remember, she's just a pirate. Get her. He barked to his men, who rallied and launched another attack from their carbonated weapons. Quickly on his feet, Luffy darted forward, evading the fizzy assault and then countered with a rapid-fire barrage of his gum-gum Gatling. While Luffy held their attention, Hancock seized the moment to unleash her slave arrow, petrifying the aggressors who dared underestimate her. All fell to her power except for Ginger, who watched in dismay as his crew souped-bed to Hancock's abilities. Just then, Sonia, Marigold, Elder Nyan, and Salome arrived, quickly tossing a dress to Hancock which she quickly put on to cover herself. Frustrated and T on his gas mask and released a dense cloud of gas. You're all going down, he declared, determined to turn the tide. The noxious fumes quickly filled the area, making it difficult for Hancock to breathe. I can't breathe, Hancock gasped, her strength waning as she began to falter and nearly lost consciousness. Reacting instantly, Luffy fought through his own struggle against the gas, covering his mouth with one arm while securing Hancock with the other. With a powerful leap, he whisked her away from the cloud, ensuring her safety. They landed in a clearer area on top of a building, far from the reach of the toxic fumes, where he could ensure his wife was all right. Hours later, after the dust settled from their confrontation with Cider and his bounty hunting crew, Luffy and Hancock found themselves near the perfume Yuta, catching their breath and taking in the aftermath. The rest of the Straw Hat crew, having caught up with their captain, gathered around, talking eagerly about their win. Hancock, her expression filled with nerves and excitement, decided it was now or never to share her news with Luffy. Darling, remember how I tried to tell you something important earlier? She began, her voice soft but carrying a weight that caught Luffy's attention. We're going to have a baby. Luffy blinked, his face the picture of confusion and wonder. A baby? How does that happen? He asked, genuinely confused, causing Sanji to nearly pass out from anger at the thought of Luffy being with Hancock. You moron. You're married to the most beautiful woman in the world, and you're asking, how? Sanji fumed, grabbing Luffy by the collar and shaking him. Robin, standing by holding Olivia with a serene smile, chuckled softly. Congratulations, Captain, Empress, she said, her voice warm with genuine happiness. Nami, overhearing the conversation, stopped in her tracks. Wait, that means Luffy had. Her voice trailed off, her eyes wide with shock. Brook chimed in with a grin. Yo-ho-ho-ho, that's wonderful news. That means you know what color pan. Before Brook could finish his statement, Nami's climax hit his skull with a loud smack. Why don't you learn? Frankie, pumping his arms in the air, shouted, way to go, Luffy. That's gonna be on Super Kid. Chopper trotted over to Hancock with a concerned look. Excuse me, Empress. Do you need any medical attention? I can give you a checkup right now? As the commotion continued, Zoro approached Luffy with his usual stoic demeanor, pulling him slightly away from the group. He glanced over at Hancock, who was now engaged in conversation with Robin and Nami, both women showering her with congratulations and eager questions while Olivia clung to her mother sleepily trying to listen. You really don't know what it means, Hancock having your kid, I mean? Zoro asked, an eyebrow raised in slight amusement at Luffy's earlier confusion. Luffy tilted his head, puzzled. You mean, like Livy, right? He replied, referring to Zoro and Robin's daughter, Olivia. Zoro nodded, his expression turning a bit more serious. Yeah, that's part of it, but now you'll be a dad, Luffy. You've got more responsibilities now, besides just going on adventures. Luffy blinked, absorbing Zoro's words. Responsibilities? Yeah, Zoro continued, folding his arms across his chest. It's not just about fighting our enemies, sailing around the world, and finding treasure anymore. You've got to think about what's best for your kid. Gotta be careful when you fight because you want to make sure you're there for them to protect them. It's a big deal, being a dad. Plus, you got your wife too. You gotta make sure both stay safe. Luffy's gaze drifted towards Hancock, a slow grin spreading across his face. This is great. This means we have another crewmate, Luffy shouted, seemingly missing Zoro's point entirely. Zoro frowned slightly as Luffy's excited shout echoed over the conversations of their crewmates. Luffy, listen, it's not about having another crewmate, he said, trying to reel Luffy's focus back to the seriousness of the conversation. Luffy's grin faded a bit as he turned back to Zoro, sensing the gravity in his voice. What do you mean? He asked, genuinely curious. It means you've got to be there for more than just the fun and games. Being a dad means teaching your kid, protecting them, making tough decisions sometimes, Zoro explained, his tone earnest. You've got a lot more to think about than just adventures. You're responsible for a whole other person now. Luffy nodded slowly, his smile returning but softer this time, more thoughtful. That sounds like a lot, he admitted. It is, Zoro agreed, but I mean it can be fun too. You get to see them grow, learn new things, and they kind of remind you of the important stuff too. Luffy's eyes lit up at that. So, it is like fun and games? He shouted, his usual enthusiasm beginning to show again. Sure, Luffy, Zoro said, a chuckle escaping him. Just trust me, it's worth every bit of effort. Seeing them happy, safe, it's the best. As if on cue, Olivia wriggled free from Robin's embrace and sprinted towards Zoro. With practiced ease, Zoro scooped her up, tossing her lightly into the air. Olivia's laughter filled the air, pure and infectious, as her father caught her effortlessly, planting a kiss on her forehead before pulling her into a tight hug. Luffy watched the interaction, a thoughtful expression crossing his face as he observed the bond between Zoro and Olivia. It was a moment of pure familial joy, a scene of contentment and love. The realization of what was ahead for him began to truly sink in. I'm going to be a dad, Luffy voiced to himself, his voice full of awe. Without a moment's hesitation, he dashed towards Hancock, who had been talking to her sisters. As he reached her, Luffy swept Hancock into his arms, lifting her off the ground in an excited embrace. Hancock, we're gonna have a kid, Luffy exclaimed, the excitement in his voice evident. I'm gonna be the king of the pirates and a dad. Hancock, caught in the whirlwind of Luffy's energy, wrapped her arms around him. Her eyes, glistening with tears of joy, met his. Overwhelmed by the moment, she could only nod, her heart overflowing with emotions that rendered her speechless that Luffy truly understood. As Hancock's pregnancy was in its 8th month, Amazon Lily buzzed with anticipation. The Empress, always vigilant, intensified her efforts to fortify the island's defenses. Under her command, the Kuja trained with renewed vigor, reinforcing every possible vulnerability. Her determination was fueled not just by her instinct to protect her home but also by her deepening maternal instinct to safeguard the future of her unborn child. Even though she didn't voice it, Hancock became anxious about the possibility of the Marines and Celestial Dragons seeking out her child. During this time, Hancock found solace in the quiet moments spent in the nursery she was preparing. Each piece of furniture was chosen with care, each decoration imbued with love. These moments allowed her a rare vulnerability, a chance to dream of the days she would spend here with her child, away from the dangers of their world. However, her preparations were abruptly interrupted one afternoon when Elder Nyan burst into the room. Snake Princess, there's been a report that your title as warlord has been revoked. Willingly following Nyan to the throne room, Hancock's mind began to race with possibilities. Could it be because they found out she was with child? Has someone made it known she's married to Luffy? This whole decision leaves her, her people, and her island without the legal protections they had long relied upon. The implications were severe and immediate. Before Hancock could fully come to terms with the sudden shift in her situation, the doors to the throne room slammed open. Margaret hurried in, her expression filled with urgency. Elder Nyan, Empress. There are Navy ships closing in fast. Margaret's voice pierced the tense atmosphere. Resounding off the stone walls of there, Nyan responded with a sharp intake of breath, her eyes widening in alarm. What, already? Snake Princess, this does not bode well. Amidst the rising anxiety and fear among the assembled Kuja warriors, Hancock maintained her composure. Her voice, steady and commanding, cut through the chaos. Calm yourselves, she declared, her authoritative tone silencing the room. We have the advantage, which they seem to have forgotten. She paused as she moved to sit on her throne, soon surrounded by her sisters. There's a good reason as to why we were chosen to be warlords. We're powerful, overwhelmingly powerful. Moments later, Hancock methodically issued orders, assigning positions to her warriors. Despite her advanced pregnancy, she felt the urge to join the front lines. As she discussed her intentions with Mari and Sonia, her voice was firm, filled with resolve of a leader unwilling to stay behind while her people fought such vile men. Big sis, you need to stay here, Sonia implored, her concern evident. It's too dangerous, especially now, she added, glancing pointedly at Hancock's pronounced belly. I am still your empress, and I will not hide while our island is under threat, Hancock countered, her tone leaving no room for argument. Before more could be said, a call rang out, distinct and urgent, cutting through the heated discussion. Empress Hancock. It was a voice they recognized, one that did not belong to any of their warriors. Marine Captain Kobe. Empress Hancock, please listen. We, the Navy, don't want to fight. I promise you we'll withdraw if we can take you into custody. Sonia, her face filled with concern, positioned herself protectively in front of Hancock, with Mari by her side. Kobe the hero, tread carefully, Sonia warned, her voice sharp. Let us handle him, big sis, Mari chimed in, her tone equally firm. Hancock, her expression unreadable as she contemplated her response, finally broke the silence. What an absurd request. I will not be taken so easily. Rising from her throne with a grace that belied her condition, Hancock cradled her belly with one hand as she moved decisively past her sisters. Mari reached out, desperation in her voice. Wait, no, big sis. Continuing to ignore her sister's pleas, Hancock stepped out onto the balcony, her presence commanding immediate attention from all sides. The battlefield fell into a momentary hush as friend and foe alike were captivated by her formidable beauty. Seizing the moment, Hancock unleashed her slave arrow, her movements fluid and precise despite her advanced pregnancy. As the arrows flew, striking several of her opponents and turning them into stone, Hancock whispered a prayer for protection, for herself and her unborn child. She hoped fervently that if anything were to happen to her and their child, that Luffy would find it in his heart to forgive her for endangering their child. With resolve hardening in her features, she prepared her next attack, the perfume femur, aimed directly at Kobe with lightning speed. Just as she was about to strike, the air around her distorted, and she was suddenly yanked off course. Blackbeard's black vortex enveloped her, pulling her towards him with a terrifying force. Before she could react further, his hand closed around her throat, lifting her off the ground. The pressure was immense, his grip unyielding. Struggling for breath under Blackbeard's iron grip, Hancock managed to speak, her voice strained and filled with pain. Do not touch me. You repulse me. Blood trickled down from the corner of her mouth. Internally, panic surged through her as she thought of the life growing inside her, yet she maintained an outward facade of icy control. Blackbeard's grip tightened further, a cruel smile on his face as Hancock's breaths became more labored. Your devil fruit power will be mine, he declared with menacing certainty. Despite her excruciating pain, Hancock's response was laced with her characteristic haughtiness. Gasping for air, he retorted, my power is nothing without my beauty. Kill me, and your victims stay stoned forever. The new user cannot undo what has been done. Her words were a calculated gamble, hoping to leverage her unique ability as a means of survival. Blackbeard's laughter echoed menacingly as he tightened his grip on Hancock, amusement clear in his voice. Trying to buy time to protect that thing, he taunted, nodding towards her belly. Hancock's protective instincts surged, her hands clawing futilely at his arm, desperate to break free. Your power is amazing. But your neck is so thin, everyone knows that I care about my crew. So turn them back, or the world will know I killed the most beautiful and formidable government dog." Hancock, pain lacing through her body, tried to tilt her head to meet his gaze, her voice strained but firm. "Release me, and I'll undo it. Just keep your filthy hands off me." Blackbeard turned to Kobe, who was observing anxiously. "So, Kobe, what should I do next? If I let her go, do you think she'll just turn my crew back?" His grip tightened further, eliciting a gasp of pain from Hancock, who now felt a sharp pain coursing through her stomach. Kobe, hoping to minimize further violence, interjected, "She needs to turn my men back as well." Hancock, fighting through her pain and the threat of tears, managed to speak. "Just leave, both of you, and I'll do it." However, Blackbeard's skepticism was evident. "Liar! If I release you, you'll turn us to stone," he accused, his hold becoming crushingly tight. Hancock's vision blurred as she struggled for air, her thoughts drifting to her unborn child. "Please, Luffy, someone, help my baby," she thought silently. Blackbeard scoffed at her plight. "Well, am I wrong? We know it's impossible for man and woman alike to not fall for you or your technique. That much is evident," he said, once again glancing at her stomach. "I guess I'll kill you anyway." As he prepared to finally crush Hancock's neck, a menacing aura approached. Before Blackbeard could inflict more harm, Rayleigh intervened, his presence abruptly altering the course of the confrontation. A few weeks had passed since the tumultuous events that had shaken Amazon Lily, bringing both chaos and the joyous yet early arrival of Lucy. With the island gradually returning to a semblance of normalcy, Hancock and Luffy were beginning to adapt to their new roles as parents under the watchful eyes of the Kuja and Straw Hat crews. Thanks to Frankie's quick craftsmanship, Hancock's chambers had been beautifully restored. Though Lucy's room was next on the list for repairs, the small family found comfort in staying together in the spacious, serene setting of Hancock's quarters. On this particular evening, after expressing her gratitude to Frankie and the others for their hard work in rebuilding the bathhouse, a place of significant personal sanctuary, Hancock returned to her room to find a heartwarming scene that stopped her at the door. Luffy, exhausted from the day's activities and perhaps the unfamiliar exertions of fatherhood, had souped to sleep. The setting sun cast long shadows across the room, draping him in a warm, golden light. Snuggled against his chest, with the gentle rise and fall of his breathing as her lullaby, was Lucy. The newborn daughter of the future king of the pirates and pirate empress was a picture of peace, her tiny hands curled into fists just under her chin as she slept soundly. Hancock paused to take in the sight, a soft smile on her lips. The stress and fears of the past weeks seemed to melt away, replaced by the profound connection of their small family. Quietly, as to not disturb them, she approached the bed. She watched them once more, the sweet, contented look on their daughter's face spoke volumes of the already growing bond between father and daughter. Reaching out, Hancock gently adjusted the light blanket that draped over them both, ensuring it covered Lucy a little better without waking her. She then took a moment to simply stand there, observing the two loves of her life. It was a simple elated so much of what she had fought for and what she hoped the future would hold. She couldn't help her continued watch over her precious family. Feeling a surge of emotions, Hancock sat down softly on the edge of the bed, her gaze lingering on Luffy's face. She leaned over, planting a gentle kiss on his cheek, and another on Lucy's soft hair, whispering quietly, "Sweet dreams, my loves." After ensuring Luffy and Lucy were comfortably asleep, Hancock slipped out of the room quietly. Her recent days had been filled with enforced rest, as per the stern orders of her sisters, Belladonna, Chopper, and most importantly, Luffy. Although physically refreshed, her mind was far too active for sleep, buzzing with thoughts that demanded attention. Wandering through the corridors led her to the palace gardens, where the cool night air felt soothing against her skin. The gardens, lush and vibrant, were just beginning to show signs of new life. It was here that Hancock came upon Robin, who was strolling through the garden paths with her daughter Olivia. The little girl, lively as ever, was busily exploring around her, every so often stopping to admire a flower or chase a fleeting shadow. "Good evening, Robin," Hancock greeted, her tone soft to avoid startling the young explorer at her side. Robin turned with a welcoming smile. "Good evening, Empress. It's lovely to see you up and about. How are you feeling? She inquired, her voice filled with genuine concern. I'm well, thank you, Hancock responded, her eyes drifting to Olivia, who was now intrigued by a cluster of moonflowers. And how are you two enjoying the evening? Just fine, thank you, Robin replied. Olivia has taken a particular interest in the moonflowers tonight. They seem to captivate her. Olivia, having noticed the adults' conversation, approached Hancock with an eager expression. Auntie Hancock, look at these flowers. They're so pretty, she stated enthusiastically, tugging gently at Hancock's skirt to make her follow. Robin's expression flickered briefly, wanting to gently remind her daughter to address Hancock as the Empress, but before she could, Hancock smiled warmly and knelt to Olivia's level. Will you show me the other flowers you enjoy? She asked, her voice gentle. Olivia nodded enthusiastically as she grabbed her mother's and Hancock's hands. Turning to Robin, after seeing her brief expression upon Olivia's new nickname for her, Hancock added, by the way, I'm honored to be considered Auntie Hancock. I feel like I am truly accepted by my Luffy's crew. Robin smiled, understanding showing in her eyes as they continued their walk through the garden, Olivia leading the way. It's more than acceptance. You're an integral part of Luffy's life, and by extension, ours. He speaks of you often, always with great affection and respect. It's clear how deeply he cares for you, Robin shared, her tone both reassuring and candid. Hancock felt a warmth spread through her, the words echoing in her heart. She glanced down at Olivia, who was now pointing out a particularly large moonflower, then back at Robin with gratitude. Thank you, Robin. That means a lot to me. Sometimes, the distance and the weight of my responsibilities here make me feel isolated from Luffy's world. Robin nodded, understanding the complexities of their unique lives. I believe that's something we all navigate in our own ways, being part of his journey. Luffy has this unique ability to bring together people from all walks of life. Your strength and your dedication to your people here are just as vital as the battles we fight alongside him. Hancock paused, considering Robin's words. It's just that with the baby now, I worry about the future, about the kind of world she will grow up in, and if Luffy will always make it back to us, she confessed, the flickering lanterns casting soft shadows on her thoughtful face. Robin squeezed Hancock's hand lightly. It's a concern any mother would have, especially in times like these. But remember, Lucy will grow up surrounded by love and strength from all of us. With you and Luffy as parents, she will learn to navigate any storm head-on. Hancock looked up, the glow from the garden lanterns illuminating her features softened by emotion. I hope to instill in her the resilience and openness that Luffy carries with him, she murmured. Olivia, tugging at their hands again, chimed in, oblivious to the depth of the adults' conversation. More flowers this way, Auntie Hancock. You have to see the lilies. As they moved towards the new spectacle Olivia promised, Hancock felt a renewed sense of connection, not just to Luffy's world, but to the extended family they had both become a part of. Robin's presence, and her words, had given her a newfound perspective on the blending of her roles as an empress, a wife, and a mother. As they admired the lilies, Hancock continued to open up, a rarity for her. It's comforting to know I'm accepted, not just as an empress, but as a person, she said thoughtfully, her eyes lingering on the delicate petals. Robin nodded, her voice warm. Like I said, Luffy speaks of you often, Empress. Your strength and kindness are admired among the crew. You are indeed a valued part of our family. She paused, reflecting on the many times Luffy had brought up Hancock in their conversations, always with a mixture of admiration and affection. Hancock, touched by the sentiment, responded softly, Please, Robin, call me Hancock when it's just us. Before they could continue, Elder Nyan approached quickly, a slight urgency in her steps. Snake Princess, she began, her tone a mix of apology and haste. It seems Lucy is awake, and Luffy is having a bit of trouble calming her. With a light laugh and a knowing smile, Hancock nodded. Duty calls, she said, beginning to head toward the palace before stopping and turning back towards Robin. Thank you for the lovely walk and conversation, Robin. Robin smiled in return, watching Hancock hurry off before continuing her own stroll with Olivia. Let's find your father and tell him all about the flowers you found, shall we? She suggested to her daughter, who gleefully agreed. Meanwhile, back in Hancock's chambers, Luffy was indeed struggling with baby Lucy, who was in the middle of a crying fit. He was making faces, blowing raspberries, and even performing a silly dance he thought might capture her attention, all to no avail. Hancock entered the room to the chaotic but endearing scene. Smiling at Luffy's antics, she approached and gently took Lucy from his arms. "She might be hungry, darling. I believe it is time for her to eat," Hancock suggested with a soft chuckle, ready to nurse their daughter. Luffy, a bit relieved yet still concerned, watched closely as Hancock expertly soothed their little girl. It was moments like these that he truly appreciated the depth of Hancock's love for their family, seeing her not just as a fierce empress or a formidable pirate but as a loving mother, their anchor amidst the chaos of their lives. The sun had not yet risen when Luffy found himself awake, pacing the length of Hancock's chambers. Each step was heavy, each glance towards the sleeping forms of Hancock and Lucy caused a pang in his chest. His usual eagerness and carefree spirit battled with a newfound dread of departure. Hancock, sensing the shift in the room, stirred from her sleep. Her eyes met his, which only deepened the conflict within him. "Luffy," she began softly, propping herself up on one elbow, "what's wrong?" Luffy stopped pacing, looking towards Lucy's crib before meeting Hancock's gaze. I don't know if I can leave yet," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. It was a stark contrast to the confident captain who arrived on the island weeks ago. Hancock's expression softened. She patted the space beside her, inviting him to sit. "Talk to me, Luffy." Sitting beside her, Luffy took a deep breath. "It's different now," he explained, his hands gesturing vaguely as if trying to grasp his swirling thoughts. "I guess I really do have more than one." Dreeting her head on Luffy's shoulder, intertwined her fingers with his, her touch reassuring. "And what are those dreams?" "To be the Pirate King," he started, his voice gaining some of its usual determination. "And to be a good dad. To be here for you and Lucy." Hancock smiled, her heart swelling with love for the man beside her. "Luffy, your dreams aren't mutually exclusive. You can pursue them both. But what if something happens to me? What if I can't come back?" Luffy's usual carefree demeanor was overshadowed by a genuine fear that shocked Hancock. Hancock squeezed his hand. "Darling, we're pirates. We know the risks of this life. I trust you and I trust your crew to ensure you come back to us." Luffy nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "I know, Hancock. It's just harder to leave now." "And it should be," Hancock agreed. "It means you care deeply, but think of what this shows Lucy. You're teaching her to be brave and to pursue her dreams no matter the challenges." Luffy's gaze lingered on Lucy's peaceful face. "I want her to be proud of me," he murmured. "She will be," Hancock assured him, "just like I am." As the first light of dawn began to filter through the curtains, Luffy stood, his resolve firming. "I'll come back, Hancock. I promise. And next time, maybe you and Lucy can sail with me." Luffy walked slowly to the docks, each step a mixture of determination and reluctance. Lucy, nestled comfortably in his arms, cooed softly, unaware of the emotional storm brewing in her father's heart. Beside him, Hancock matched his pace, her expression serene but her eyes reflecting a shared sorrow at the impending departure. As they approached the Sunny, the crew paused their bustling preparations, their expressions turning solemn as they witnessed the quiet struggle of their captain. Luffy stopped at the edge of the dock. He leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss on Lucy's forehead, his rough fingers tenderly brushing her tiny cheek. "I'll be back before you know it," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. Handing Lucy back to Hancock, their hands lingered, touching for a moment longer than necessary, both drawing strength from the other. Hancock cradled Lucy to her chest, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We'll be waiting," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil she felt. Zoro watched the tender scene unfold and then turned to the crew with a firm command. "All right, everyone, give them some space," he said, his tone softer than usual but still commanding. "Back to work." He understood the significance of such farewells. He knew he wouldn't appreciate an audience if he were in Luffy's shoes, especially if it involved Robin and Olivia. The crew dispersed, turning their backs respectfully, busily attending to their tasks while giving their captain and his family the privacy they needed. Only Robin lingered a moment longer, offering a supportive smile to Hancock before joining the others. With the crew respectfully distant, Luffy took one of Hancock's hands in his. "I love you, Hancock," he said sincerely, his eyes locked on hers. "I love you too, Luffy," Hancock replied, her voice soft but filled with emotion. In a spontaneous moment that surprised them both, Luffy leaned in and kissed Hancock gently. It was a rare public display of affection from him, one that left Hancock's cheeks burning a deep shade of red as they pulled apart. Luffy laughed heartily at her reaction, his joy infectious. "Your face is super red, Hancock," he teased, causing his wife's blush to deepen even further. Hancock, usually so composed and regal, couldn't help but cover her face with her free hand. With a final wave and a broad grin, Luffy turned and bounded onto the deck of the Thousand Sunny. As the ship began to pull away from the dock, he kept his gaze fixed on Hancock and Lucy, his hand raised in a lingering farewell. "I'll be back before you both know it," he shouted across the water, the wind carrying his voice. Hancock, holding Lucy close, managed a brave smile and waved back, her heart heavy but filled with love. As the Sunny's sails caught the breeze and the ship slowly disappeared from sight, Hancock felt a gentle touch on her shoulder. She turned to find her sisters, Mari and Sonia, along with Elder Nyan joining her at the dock, their presence a comforting reminder of the strong support system around her. "We're here for you, big sis," Mari said, her voice warm. "And Lucy," added Sonia, nodding towards their niece, who was now quietly observing the world with curious eyes. Nyan gave Hancock a reassuring smile. "He'll be back, meanwhile we have a princess to help raise." Hancock nodded, drawing strength from their words. She watched the horizon for a moment longer, where the last hint of the Sunny had vanished, then turned back, ready to face the days ahead with grace and resolve. Lucy's room within the confines of Amazon Lily's palace was both her haven and her cage. Surrounded by the faces of the Straw Hat crew on wanted posters, and maps detailing the vast expanse of the Grand Line and New World, her surroundings whispered of adventures not taken. Central to this sanctuary was an open logbook, flanked by a detailed sea chart, each entry, a narrative of the voyages undertaken by her father and his crew, serving as both inspiration and a harsh reminder of the life she was recently denied. Perched on the edge of her bed, Lucy's fingers danced across the chart, tracing the paths once sailed by her father. His tales were more than mere bedtime stories. They were promises of freedom she longed to experience. "The person with the most freedom on the sea is the Pirate King," her father would declare. As she mulled over his words, the walls of her chamber seemed to close in around her, a tangible representation of her confinement. On Amazon Lily, she was royalty. A princess bound by expectations and the protective gaze of her family. With a resolve settling over her, Lucy snapped the logbook shut. The longing for freedom, a trait inherited from her father, refused to be quieted by stone walls and royal duties. It was time for a challenge to the constraints placed upon her since that horrible incident almost 3 years prior, which had her nearly taken as a trophy by forces coveting the Pirate King's daughter. Stepping into the grand hallway, Lucy's steps were swift, her determination clear in her stride. As she navigated the familiar corridors towards her aunts, her guardians and advisors while her mother was traveling, the transition from surprise to concern on their faces did not go unnoticed. They sensed the brewing storm within their niece and braced themselves. "Aunt Sonia, Aunt Mari, where is Mother?" she demanded, her words resonating with a mixture of urgency and impatience. Sonia, keeping a calm demeanor, attempted to soothe her niece. "Lucy, dear, please, what has you so troubled?" she inquired, her expression softening as she took a step towards Lucy, hoping to bridge the gap her words alone could not. Lucy came to a halt in front of them, her posture rigid, the embodiment of defiance. "It's been weeks since anyone's seen Mother, let alone heard from her. She promised she'd return in time for my birthday." Lucy's voice cracked under the strain of her emotions. "Here I am, once again solely shouldering the responsibilities of the island when it should be her. I didn't ask for this." Mari stepped forward, her hand reaching out to gently rest on Lucy's shoulder, a silent offer of comfort. "Lucy, your mother was called away on urgent matters. You know the weight of her responsibilities. She is not only your mother, but the empress and guardian to all on Amazon Lily," Mari explained, trying to offer some perspective. "That's just it, isn't it? Her duties always take precedence. What about me? Her own daughter is like an afterthought next to her obligations." Lucy shot back, her voice heavy with the pain of feeling neglected. A glance passed between Sonia and Mari, filled with concern. Sonia addressed Lucy with warmth. "Lucy, your mother's love for you is endless, you know that. Leading Amazon Lily is a monumental task, but she has faith in you, entrusting you with her duties, knowing well that you're more than capable, especially with our guidance." The resolve in Lucy's eyes wavered, her frustration mingling with a deep-seated yearning for freedom. "I understand she trusts me, but I don't want this life, bound by ceremonies and councils. I want to be out on the sea, I want to be a part of the adventures that lie beyond these shores. Dad's world is out there. Has he sent any word about coming?" Lucy inquired, hope flickering in her eyes. Her aunts shared a nervous yet sad look before turning their attention back to the young princess in front of them. "Your spirit mirrors your father's, but remember this island is also your home." Mari paused, weighing her next words carefully, as to not worry her niece. "As for your father, we haven't received any messages from him, I'm afraid." A moment of silence hung in the air as Lucy pondered her aunt's words. She looked up, her eyes determined yet filled with a sense of longing. "You both know I've been training, learning everything I can about navigation, combat, and survival at sea. I'm not just dreaming, I'm preparing. When I turn 17, I will leave this island, even if I have to join Dad to do so." It was clear. Lucy didn't see herself merely as the princess confined to Amazon Lily but as Monkey D. Lucy, destined to carve her own path, much like her father. Sonia's voice carried a mixture of understanding and caution. "We admire your passion, but venturing from Amazon Lily has consequences you must be ready to face." Lucy's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained. "I know the consequences, but I need to follow my own path. Beyond being the princess, or the Empress's daughter, I want to live as me, Lucy, not as a title or a role." Mari gently interjected, "We're not asking you to abandon your dreams, Lucy. We only hope you'll consider the balance between your desires and your duties. Your mother, she made similar choices, and they weren't without their consequences. And remember, your true lineage as Luffy's daughter must remain concealed for your safety. We can't risk you being targeted and taken again." Lucy's eyes held a distant look, reflecting the battles raging within her heart. The pull of duty versus the call of the unknown. "It should no longer matter who my parents are. For those who know me as the daughter of the Pirate Empress, Boa Hancock, it already makes me a target. People already see me as a trophy, a prize to be won. I want to be known for my own deeds, not just my lineage." Acknowledging Lucy's feelings, Sonia added, "Discuss this with your mother upon her return. She, more than anyone, will understand." Lucy took a deep breath, the weight of the conversation settling on her shoulders. "I'll talk to her, but I've made up my mind." Mari smiled faintly. "You're your parents' daughter, through and through. Brave, headstrong, and fiercely independent. Just promise us you'll think this through, all the way." "I promise," Lucy spoke as she turned to make her way back to her room. Over her shoulder, she called out, "If Mother arrives, could you tell her where I am?" Mari, looking concerned, replied, "You don't want to greet her when she arrives?" Lucy paused in her steps, her back still towards her aunts. With a nonchalant shrug, she said, "Does it really matter? Our time together is always cut short. Her attention is always pulled away. Maybe if I'm absent, she might actually take notice." Her voice trailed off, the last words barely a whisper, betraying her deep-seated belief about her mother's perception of her. Sonia let out a soft sigh. "We'll let her know you're in your room." They watched as Lucy disappeared into her quarters. Turning to Mari, Sonia's expression was filled with sadness. "She's convinced herself she's alone, that our sister doesn't care for her, despite the truth being the opposite." Mari nodded slowly. "Should we give Big Sis a heads up before she speaks with Lucy?" she asked, her brow furrowed in concern. Sonia shrugged, a sense of uncertainty in her gesture. "Perhaps. We'll see how our sister wants to handle this. However, I don't think she'll be in a pleasant mood. I wonder if her sickness will return if—" Mari shook her head as if stop Sonia from even speaking the possibilities into existence. "Our sister would not want us to think that way." Days earlier, aboard the Thousand Sunny, the atmosphere was grave, a stark contrast to the usual cheerfulness. Hancock stood amidst the Straw Hat crew, her expression solemn as she listened to an intercepted marine transmission. The news was dire. Luffy, her beloved husband, had been captured by the Marines. Worse still, the call revealed that Luffy was not just imprisoned, he was being tortured, with plans to an all-too-real possibility. The room fell into a suffocating silence, broken only by Robin's cautious yet urgent voice. Immediate action is essential. Should the world learn of Luffy's execution plans? Hancock's response cut through the gloom with the sharpness of a sword. We cannot, and will not, allow it to reach that point, she asserted. Luffy's rescue is our utmost priority. We'll put an end to their plans before they can even consider finalizing them. As her words resonated, a chill descended with Zoro's somber speculation. There's a chance the transmission was a decoy, meant to lure us into a trap. For all we know, Luffy could be. Robin reacted swiftly, her usually composed gaze sharpening as she directed it at Zoro. In a silent gesture, a hand, manifested through her ability, sprouted onto Zoro's shoulder, promptly silencing him by covering his mouth. This silent interjection, coupled with her stern look, conveyed a clear message, a warning to measure his words more carefully, particularly with their captain's wife among them. Hancock, however, remained focused, her gaze steely. No, she stated firmly, cutting through the brief discord. We cannot afford to dwell on possibilities that will weaken our resolve. My husband is strong, and we must remain strong for him. We need to plan and not ponder on what-ifs. With Hancock's words, a renewed sense of purpose coursed through the crew. Strategies were swiftly debated, with the collective decision to muster the Straw Hat Grand Fleet and any available allies for a rescue operation. As the meeting adjourned, the Straw Hats and soon their allies began their preparations in earnest. The urgency of their mission was clear, but so was their resolve. They were not just fighting for their captain. They were fighting for a friend, a loved one, and the very spirit that had always driven them forward. Back on Amazon Lily, Hancock sought solitude in the aftermath of her return. Secluded within her room in the palace, she grappled with the grim reality that awaited her conversation with Lucy. A revelation that could upend the fragile peace of their world. Lucy's patience had worn thin, her feelings of abandonment intensifying with each passing hour of silence from her mother. With her faithful companions, Zephyra and Patches, in tow, Lucy's frustration reached its boiling point. She stormed into Hancock's chambers, her heart heavy with accusations. "Mother, you've been back for what seems like hours without a word." Her voice, laced with anger and hurt, filled the room. "You've confined me to this island, yet you can't even face me?" Her anger was palpable as she moved to stand in front of Hancock. "I refuse to stay caged here any longer. I'm leaving when I turn 17, whether you approve or not." Hancock, staring almost through Lucy, tears staining her cheeks, presented a rare and heart-wrenching sight. The usually confident Empress was visibly shaken, her loyal snake, Salome, by her side, offering silent support. The sight of her mother in such a vulnerable state softened Lucy's anger, giving way to concern. "Mom, what's wrong? What happened?" she asked, her tone shifting from accusatory to worried. Hancock, struggling to compose herself, faced her daughter. After a few moments of fighting through her tears, Hancock took a deep, steadying breath. "The Marines have your father. They plan to execute him." Her voice broke, conveying the depth of her fear and despair. The revelation hit Lucy like a physical blow, her previous anger dissipating, leaving a cold dread in its wake. "Is that why you disappeared for so long? Why didn't you take me with you? We should be there, fighting beside his crew." Her voice cracked, filled with betrayal and urgency. Hancock, her voice barely audible, explained, "I left you here to protect you, and to confirm these reports. Your father's title has made him a target, and if they learned of you, I couldn't risk it, not after those vile men found out who you were and took you from us. I can't go through that again." After a few quiet moments, Hancock looked up to see her daughter trying to process the news. Hancock rose, enveloping Lucy in a warm and safe embrace. "We must be strong for him, Lucy. I promise, I will do everything in my power to save your father." Lucy buried her face in her mother's shoulder. "I can't lose either of you. Please don't leave me, Mom." Lucy pleaded, her voice trembling with the thought of facing the world without either of her parents. Hancock stroked Lucy's hair gently, offering a solace that felt all too fleeting. "I have to go, my love, but please understand, my decision to leave is also to protect you." Lucy pulled back slightly, looking into her mother's eyes as she finally let her tears fall down her face. "But I refuse to stay here without you. I want to go with you. I'm tired of being alone." Hancock cupped Lucy's face in her hands, wiping away her tears. "You're never alone, Lucy. You have your aunts, Zephyra, Patches, and all of Amazon Lily." The resolve in Hancock's words was clear, but so was the pain of separation. "I'll be back as soon as I can, with your father." Lucy paused for a few moments, grappling with the enormity of the situation, before she nodded slowly, her sobs subsiding into quiet sniffles. "Okay, Mom, but please be careful." Hancock pulled Lucy into another tight hug. "I will, my darling, and remember, no matter what happens, your father and I love you more than anything in this world." As they held each other, the challenges before them loomed large. "Can I stay in here tonight, Mom? I don't think I'll be able to sleep." Hancock nodded, her arms tightening around Lucy as she spoke, "Of course." As night deepened, Lucy felt herself relax in her mother's embrace. For now, they had each other, and in the face of an uncertain future, that was enough to hold on to hope. Lucy stirred from her restless sleep, the first rays of sunlight filtering through the curtains and casting a soft glow across the room. The other side of the bed was empty, the sheets cold, indicating that Hancock had been gone for some time. Confusion and a twinge of irritation battled within Lucy as she sat up, the events of the previous night crashing back into her consciousness. Dragging herself out of bed, Lucy's thoughts were a whirlwind of worry for her father and uncertainty about her mother's whereabouts. After hastily getting ready, she knew her mother would have to be at the docks, her heart heavy with the fear of what might come next. To her surprise, upon reaching the palace's main hall, she found Hancock waiting for her, an unreadable expression on her face. Lucy's steps faltered, her prepared reproaches dying on her lips. The sight of her mother, composed yet undoubtedly carrying the weight of the world, reminded Lucy of the depth of her love and respect for her. Hancock gestured for Lucy to sit with her. "I wanted to speak with you before heading to the ship," she stated, her voice steady. "I've heard you have some things you want to discuss with me. I assume it's regarding what you were telling me last night." Lucy squared her shoulders, meeting her mother's gaze with a determination that mirrored the pirate empress's own when faced with adversity. "Mom," she started, her voice steadier than she felt, "I'm not just asking to fight at your side because I want to be close to Dad, or because I'm seeking adventure. I want to go with you because I know I can help." She took a moment to gather her thoughts, then continued, "You, Aunt Sonia, and Aunt Mari have trained me, not just in combat, but in strategy and survival." Lucy leaned forward, her passion for the subject evident in her voice. "I've also spent countless hours with the logs and charts in the palace library, studying every known pirate and marine, their powers, their tactics. I understand the risks, and I know the opponents we might face." She paused, allowing her words to sink in before adding, "I'm not the same little girl who would run around the palace dreaming of adventures. I'm not, though, allowed herself to be captured by those horrible men. I've grown, and I've prepared myself for this. Not just for any journey, but specifically to be able to stand by your side in situations exactly like this." Seeing the hesitation in her mother's eyes, Lucy pressed on, her voice filled with a blend of desperation and earnestness. "I know the dangers, Mom, but how can I stand by and do nothing when Dad's life is at stake? How can I call myself his daughter if I'm not willing to fight for him, for us?" Lucy reached across, taking Hancock's hands in hers, squeezing gently. "Let me come with you. Let me prove that I'm more than just a princess whose parents need to constantly protect her. I want to fight for my family." Her plea hung in the air, a testament to her maturity and the depth of her resolve. Lucy held her mother's gaze, willing her to see the sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't just asking to be included. She was asking to contribute, to use everything she had learned for the cause that mattered most to her. But Hancock surprised her. "Lucy, I made up my mind last night," she said, causing Lucy to become a little nervous with anticipation. "You can come, but it won't be an adventure. It's going to be dangerous, and you must follow my every step." Lucy felt a wave of emotions, relief, joy, and the sobering realization of the seriousness of their mission. "Thank you, Mom. I promise, I'll do exactly as you say," she replied, her determination renewed, even as the weight of the situation settled heavily on her shoulders. The decision made, Hancock outlined the plan to Lucy, emphasizing the risks and the importance of discretion and obedience. As Lucy listened, the romantic notions of adventure she had harbored were replaced by a solemn understanding of the stakes involved. As they left the palace for the docks, where the perfume Yuta was now ready, the island of Amazon Lily seemed to hold its breath, aware of the gravity of the mission its empress and young princess were about to undertake. A few days had passed since Hancock agreed to let Lucy accompany her, and now, under the veil of night, the perfume Yuta approached a secluded cove that served as the prearranged rendezvous point with the Straw Hat pirates. The Thousand Sunny, distinguishable even in the dim light, lay anchored, its crew ready and waiting in the shadows. The encounter was subdued, the usual exuberance dimmed by the gravity of their mission. Hancock, accompanied by her daughter and their faithful snake companions, Zephyra and Salome, boarded the Thousand Sunny. Zoro, standing in for Luffy in his absence, greeted Hancock with a solemn nod. "We're all set," he stated, his serious demeanor never seeming to waver. Hancock returned the nod, her eyes reflecting a fierce determination as she assumed a position of leadership beside him. Lucy looked around at the gathered Straw Hats. She tried to keep herself together as she looked at each of them. Robin, Olivia, and Kenji offered her reassuring smiles, silently affirming her role in this critical endeavor. Lucy felt a sense of belonging, understanding that she was an integral part of this family, united in a daring purpose. As the hours passed, the tension among the crew grew. The sea seemed too calm, the silence too heavy. It was a stark reminder of the calm before a storm, both literal and metaphorical, that all sailors feared and respected. The atmosphere was tense as they moved stealthily through the waters, every crewmate alert to the slightest change in the wind or wave. Lucy, standing at the front of the Sunny, allowed her thoughts to drift to strategies and what-ifs, her gaze locked on the path ahead. Hancock, ever vigilant, scanned the horizon for any sign of the marine vessel. Her concern for Luffy was palpable, fueling her every command. Beside her and Zoro, Nami consulted navigational charts with a furrowed brow, every so often glancing up at the Empress and the Straw Hat first mate, ready to follow their lead. While Hancock, Nami, and Zoro were deeply engrossed in strategizing their route and discussing the tactical approach for the rescue mission, Lucy found herself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The weight of the situation, the uncertainty of their mission's outcome, began to manifest as a visible nervousness in her demeanor. Noticing Lucy's unease, Robin approached her with a gentle grace that always seemed to calm her family. "Lucy, sweetheart, come here for a moment," Robin said, guiding her a little away from the planning group to a quieter part of the deck. As they stood side by side, looking out over the ocean, Robin placed a reassuring arm around Lucy. "I know this is a lot to take in and it's okay to feel nervous," Robin began, her voice soft yet filled with an underlying strength. "But remember, you're not alone in this. We're all here with you, and together, we've faced challenges just as daunting as this one." Lucy turned to look at Robin, her eyes reflecting the turmoil inside her. "What if we're too late?" she whispered, the fear of losing her father, the legendary king of the pirates, pressing heavily on her heart. Robin offered a warm, comforting smile, one that seemed to momentarily dispel the shadows of doubt. "Lucy, your father is one of the most resilient and cunning pirates the world has ever seen, and he has something that many do not, a family and crew who will move heaven and earth for him, including his incredibly brave daughter." Lucy couldn't help but smile, a flicker of hope reigniting within her. "You really think we can save him?" "I believe we can. We have faced the impossible before and emerged victorious. This time will be no different," Robin assured her, her conviction unwavering. Feeling a surge of courage from Robin's words, Lucy nodded, her determination renewed. "Thank you, Aunt Robin," she said with a small, grateful smile, acknowledging the familial bond that extended beyond blood. Robin pulled Lucy into a gentle hug, a gesture filled with warmth and the same maternal affection she would show her own children. "We're a family, and we take care of each other, no matter what." Their sweet interaction served as a poignant reminder of the deep connections that had formed among the Straw Hat crew and their allies, connections that would be their greatest strength in the trials to come. As the ship neared the anticipated interception point, Usopp called down, his voice tense. "Ship sighted," he announced, and immediately the crew sprang into action, each member moving with a purpose born of countless battles fought together. Hancock stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the distant silhouette of the marine ship. "This is it," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion, "for Luffy." Lucy, feeling a mix of fear and determination, took her place beside her mother. Her training with her aunts, her studies of navigation and combat, all of it had led to this moment. She was ready to fight for her father, to prove herself as more than just the princess of Amazon Lily or the daughter of the king of the pirates. She was Monkey D. Lucy, and today, she would help save her father. Under the cloak of darkness, the Thousand Sunny glided silently through the water, the marine ship they've targeted looming ahead. The usual quiet, devoid of the typical marine hustle, did not sit well with the crew. Hancock, standing stoically at the bow, broke the silence that had fallen over them. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of command and an edge of caution. "This silence. It's too calculated. Everyone, be on high alert," she instructed as her eyes scanned the marine ship for any sign of a trap. "If my Luffy is there, then I will bring him back." As they drew closer, Hancock prepared to take the lead. "If my Luffy is there, then I will bring him back," she declared, her determination clear. Lucy stepped forward, her determination mirroring her mother's. "I'm going too. I can help you fight," she declared. Hancock opened her mouth to protest, but Lucy was quick to plead her case. "Mom, I need to do this. I promise I'll be careful and stick by your side," she implored, her eyes pleading. With a heavy sigh, Hancock acquiesced. "Very well. We'll go together," she agreed. "We'll be back quickly. I've rendered an entire marine ship powerless before. I can do it again. Nobody's going alone. We're a crew and a family. We stick together," Zoro interjected, his tone leaving no room for argument, not even with his captain's wife. Bringing attention to the potential dangers that might lurk ahead, Robin added, "We can't afford to take risks, especially not with adversaries like Akainu possibly in the shadows. We could be playing right into his hands." With a shared nod, Hancock grasped Lucy's hand, their fingers intertwining in a promise of support. "Fine, the four of us will go together. Let's head out," she said with authority. In the quiet of the night, the small group approached the marine vessel using Mini Mary. Each stroke through the dark waters drew them closer to the heart of danger, their spirits ready for what awaited. Back on the Thousand Sunny, the rest of the crew kept vigilant. After a few moments, the calm was shattered by the ring of the transponder snail. An urgent message came through from their allies. "We've located Luffy. Are you in the area?" The words ignited a flicker of hope, but also urgency. Nami reached for her own transponder snail, attempting to relay this crucial information to Robin and the rest, but her call went unanswered. Meanwhile, on the marine vessel, the stillness was unsettling, as if the quiet was the calm before a storm. Hancock, Lucy, Zoro, and Robin stood ready, their senses heightened in anticipation of the imminent confrontation. They were right to be on guard. As soon as they ventured deeper into the ship's hold, shadows shifted into forms, and Marines jumped out from their hiding spots. Hancock stepped forward, the first to react. Her conqueror's haki flared, an invisible force that sent weaker Marines crumpling to the ground unconscious. Those who didn't fall were enticed by her beauty before she petrified them. She quickly moved through the group of Marines before her, utilizing her slave arrow and perfume femur techniques. Lucy, standing her ground, channeled her father's spirit and her mother's elegance in combat. With a determined cry, she launched herself into the fray, her fists and feet a blur, making sure to use her armament haki. Each connection with a Marine was precise, her movements fluid and controlled, yet imbued with a raw power that belied her youthful appearance. Zoro couldn't help but smirk as he watched Lucy's determined attacks. Moving to assist her in her fight, he drew his swords, their edges glinting ominously under the dim lighting of the ship. With controlled precision, his swords sliced through Marine uniforms and deflected incoming bullets. The sound of steel meeting steel rang out, a deadly melody composed by the swordsman's expert hands. Zoro moved like a storm, each slash and parry a testament to years of battles fought and won. "Cease fleur. Clutch," Robin intoned, and dozens of arms appeared, grabbing weapons and restraining Marines before bending them backwards in seemingly unnatural angles. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos around her, a serene conductor orchestrating a symphony of restraint. As the team advanced, they worked in tandem, their styles distinct yet complementary. Hancock's agility and devastating kicks cleared a path, while Zoro's raw strength and swordsmanship ensured no enemy could approach from behind. Lucy, under the watchful eyes of her mentors, grew more confident with each downed opponent, her attacks becoming more daring and inventive. The clashing of metal, the thuds of unconscious bodies hitting the floor, and the occasional grunt or shout filled the ship's corridors, turning the stealthy ambush into a full-blown skirmish. Despite the number of Marines, the team's coordination and individual prowess turned the tide unmistakably in their favor. As the fight died down with the last Marine falling, the sense of victory was short-lived, the real objective lay elsewhere, and the time to regroup was now. Zoro's keen eyes swept across the corridors and deck as they moved further, ensuring no other surprises lay in wait. It was then that Robin's transponder snail began to ring, its shrill tones slicing through the silence. Nami didn't hesitate as her voice came through urgent and clear. "Finally, are you okay? We have confirmation that Luffy is on another ship. We need to withdraw and regroup." A heavy sigh of relief mixed with frustration passed Robin's lips, her gaze meeting those of her companions. "Understood. We're heading back now." Aboard the Sunny, the air was thick with anticipation as they prepared to set sail once more. Nami approached Hancock as she boarded. "We have a plan," she said, her tone filled with urgency. Hancock was quick to recover as she joined Nami. "Then let's not waste another moment." Lucy, standing beside her mother, felt a swell of emotions, fear, hope, and determination mixed within her like a stormy sea. As she looked into her mother's eyes, the same storm was reflected back, but she also found strength. In the bowels of a marine battleship, far from the eyes of the world, a scene of grim determination unfolded. Luffy, the man whose spirit seemed unbreakable, was held captive, his wrists and ankles shackled with sea prism stone. The cuffs sapped his strength, leaving him without access to his devil fruit abilities, a mere mortal under the relentless hands of his captors. Each day of his capture the torture was methodical, a cruel attempt to break the will of a man who had become a symbol of freedom across the seas. Luffy bore the marks of his ordeal, his skin marred by bruises, deep cuts that were slow to heal, broken ribs making it hard to breathe, and burns that spoke of his encounters with Akainu's merciless magma. Yet, even in the face of such cruelty, Luffy's resilience shone through. With each passing moment of pain, his resolve hardened, a quiet promise to himself and to his captors. "You think this will break me?" he rasped, his voice rough but unwavering. "You forget, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, king of the pirates. When I get out of here, you're going to pay for this, Akainu. I'll make sure of it." As Akainu towered over the shackled form of Luffy, his expression was one of contempt and impatience. "What's left for you to fight for? You've lost," he growled, roughly yanking Luffy's head up by the hair, forcing their eyes to meet. Luffy's response was a weak grin, unwavering even as his body bore the marks of his trials. "Lost? Nah," he countered, the image of his family bolstering his spirit. Akainu's face twisted with scorn. "This isn't going to be like Marineford. You're not walking away from this," he hissed, his voice laden with venom. "So, tell me, why do you cling to this fight?" Despite the pain, Luffy's smile deepened, his thoughts anchored to Hancock and Lucy. "Because I've got to return to what's most important to me," he said, his tone carrying the weight of a promise only a husband and father could make. "Ivy treasure." Akainu's grip tightened, his frustration simmering as he peered into Luffy's defiant eyes. "Your treasure?" he sneered. "And you think your crew will save you just so you can get back to your stupid treasure? They won't even know where to find you." Luffy's grin remained, a beacon of his indomitable will. "They're the greatest crew in the world," he stated with pride. "They'll come." "Hope can be a dangerous thing. It can drive men to madness," Akainu spat, releasing Luffy's hair with a shove. "But go ahead, cling to your hope. It will make your inevitable end all the more crushing." Luffy's head dipped from the force, but he lifted it again, his eyes burning with a fierce resolve. "It's not hope," he corrected with a chuckle that held no humor, just certainty. "It's trust. My crew, my fam." Luffy stopped himself as he realized he almost slipped up. "My crew, they've never let me down." Akainu turned away, his silhouette dark against the cell's light. "We'll see how long that trust lasts," he said over his shoulder, leaving Luffy alone in the dim, cold cell. Alone but not broken, Luffy's thoughts were with Hancock and Lucy, their faces clear in his mind's eye. "Hang on," he whispered to them, as if they could hear him across the vast ocean. "I'm coming home." In the relative quiet of the Thousand Sunny's crow's nest, Hancock and Lucy stood side by side, gazing out at the horizon where sea met sky in a line as thin and sharp as a sword's edge. The distant stars flickered like tiny beacons, guiding them in the vast expanse of the dark sea. Lucy leaned on the railing, her face filled with worry that she could no longer hide from her mother. "What if we're too late?" she whispered, the fear of losing her father a tight knot in her chest. Hancock placed a hand on her daughter's back, a gesture both comforting and solid. "We won't be," she said with a conviction that belied her own emotions. "Your father is the strongest man I know, and we are doing everything in our power to reach him." "But what if our power isn't enough?" Lucy's voice cracked, revealing the vulnerability of a child facing the potential loss of a parent. She looked up, her blue eyes meeting her mother's, finding in them the fierce determination that had seen the Empress of Amazon Lily through countless battles. I can't imagine a world without him," she admitted, a lone tear escaping down her cheek. "Nor can I," Hancock said, her voice softening. She wrapped an arm around Lucy, pulling her into an embrace. "But we must believe in him, as he believes in us. We must hold on to hope, Lucy." They stood there, mother and daughter, united in their shared resolve and fear, finding solace in each other's presence. Hancock stroked Lucy's hair, the same way she had when Lucy was a little girl waking from a nightmare. Lucy felt the steady beat of her mother's heart, a rhythm that comforted her as a child and still does as a teen. "I want to see Dad again," she said, her voice muffled against Hancock's chest. "And you will," Hancock assured her, pulling back to look into Lucy's eyes again. "You've trained for this. You're ready, and remember, being brave doesn't mean you aren't afraid. It means facing your fear and standing tall despite it." Lucy nodded, a newfound strength settling within her. "I'll make you proud," she vowed, the legacy of her parents, the Pirate King and the Pirate Empress, fueling her courage. Hancock smiled, a rare, genuine smile that lit up her features. "You already have," she whispered. "Now, let's go prepare. We're getting your father back." The sea was calm, its surface reflecting the growing light, a stark contrast to the tension that hung in the air among the crew. Lucy, standing with her mother and hugging her on deck, watched as a ship bearing the symbol of the Revolutionary Army emerged from the morning mist. It was a sight that brought relief. "It's Uncle Sabo," Lucy said, spotting Sabo and his team on board as she stepped back from her embrace with her mother. Without wasting any time on pleasantries, Sabo lowered himself on the Thousand Sunny's deck and announced, "We've confirmed it." His voice carried the weight of his personal stake in the mission. "Luffy is alive and on the marine ship we've been tracking. We're close now." Upon hearing the confirmation, Hancock's expression grew firm. "We have no time to waste," she declared. Zoro, standing beside Sabo, gave a firm nod of agreement. "We're not letting them take Luffy any further, especially not without a fight," he said, his voice carrying a tone of defiance. In the midst of their preparation, Sabo turned towards Lucy and offered an encouraging smile. "You're definitely Luffy's little girl. He'd be proud to see you standing here with us today." Lucy returned the smile with one of her own, bolstered by Sabo's words. "I'm here to fight for him," she stated, her voice steady. "We're going to get my dad back." Sabo then turned to Hancock and gave her an encouraging nod. "Empress," he began, always a little concerned with offending his brother's wife, given her history with any other man. "I promise you. We will get Luffy back or I will die trying." The revolutionaries shared their intelligence with the assembled group, detailing the marine ship's defenses and the likely location of Luffy within. It was clear this operation would require precision, teamwork, and a bit of the unpredictable nature that had always characterized the Straw Hat Pirates. Robin began to outline a plan, her calm demeanor a guiding force. "We'll need to split into teams. Frankie, Sanji, Olivia, and I can take care of this section," she explained, her finger tracing over the makeshift blueprint assembled from their collective intel on the marine ship. "I'm not sure if Luffy will truly be in the ship's holding cell, but if he is, it may be best for Hancock, Lucy, Sabo, and Zoro to head there. That leaves the rest of both crews to safeguard our ships and ensure we have a swift means of departure. Chopper, it's vital you're prepared for Luffy." We need to be prepared for any state he may be in upon rescue." Hancock nodded, her eyes scanning over the Marine's ship on the horizon. "I will destroy them all for taking my dear husband." The plan was set, the course was clear, and the two ships sailed closer to their destination. Together, they would be an unstoppable force, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them on the horizon. In the dimly lit confines of the Marine ship's holding cell, the air was thick with tension. Luffy, his body bloody and burned due to Akainu's relentless torture, was feeling the weight of his torment. His wrists and ankles chafed against the sea prism stone cuffs, a constant reminder of his current vulnerability. Despite the physical pain, his resolve remained as steadfast as ever. Akainu stood over Luffy, a dark silhouette against the flickering torchlight. "You really think they can save you?" he sneered, his voice a venomous hiss. "If they came for you, they would be marching to their doom, and you with them." Luffy, lifting his head with effort, met Akainu's gaze with an unwavering stare. "They will find me," he said, the certainty in his voice more piercing than any physical blow could ever be. "And when they do, you'll wish you hadn't underestimated us." Akainu raised his fist and brought it against Luffy's ribs with force at Luffy's defiance. He was ready to continue beating the already broken Straw Hat captain when a Marine burst into the room, out of breath and visibly shaken. "Admiral Akainu, sir," he exclaimed, "we've spotted the Straw Hat ship, along with the Revolutionary Army's vessels, approaching our coordinates." Akainu's attention snapped to the Marine, his eyes narrowing. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the news settling like a storm cloud ready to burst. "Is that so?" Akainu mused aloud, his mind already racing with strategies and contingencies. Turning back to Luffy, a cruel smile twisted Akainu's lips. "It seems your friends are indeed as foolish as you are hopeful, but they won't acting. Not by a long shot." Luffy's response was a grin, despite the blood and grime that marked his face. "We'll see about that," he retorted, wheezing as it felt like another rib had been broken. Akainu stepped closer, the menace in his posture unmistakable. "Prepare the troops. We'll give the Straw Hats and their allies a welcome they won't soon forget," he ordered the Marine, who nodded vigorously before hurrying out of the room. As Akainu exited the cell, his last glance back at Luffy was one of contempt. "Enjoy the solitude while it lasts, Straw Hat. It may be the last peace you have on these seas before I take your life along with your crews." Outside, the Marine ship buzzed with activity as preparations for the impending confrontation began. The stakes had never been higher, and the sea around them was about to become a battleground. The clash between the Straw Hats, the Revolutionary Army, and the Marines was inevitable, and at its heart was the unyielding spirit of the man who was ready to be reunited with his family. The battle on the Marine ship had erupted into chaos, the decks alight with the ferocity of the Straw Hat and Revolutionary Army's assault. Robin, Olivia, Sanji, and Frankie fought valiantly against a seemingly endless wave of Marines, their coordinated efforts cutting a path through their adversaries. Each of them showcased their unique strengths. Robin's giant limbs ensnared their foes. Olivia's swift strikes that mirrored her father's incapacitated many. Sanji's powerful kicks sent enemies flying, and Frankie's combination of coup de vent and strong right helped take out the remaining enemies. The ship's interior was a maze designed to disorient and delay intruders, with its endless corridors and sealed doors. Sabo led the way, relying on his knowledge and the brief intel they had gathered, but even he found the vessel's layout bewildering. As they navigated through another series of identical hallways, the group encountered a sudden split in their path. Without hesitation, Sabo veered left, following the route he believed would lead them to the holding cells. Hancock, Zoro, and Lucy were right behind him, moving as a single unit in the dim light. However, in their haste, they failed to notice a door silently closing behind them, cutting off one of the paths. Lucy, her mind preoccupied with thoughts of her father, lagged slightly behind. The gap widened as she paused to glance at a series of Marine insignias adorning the walls, each marking significant victories. Her distraction proved costly. When she looked up, the group had turned the corner, and in her attempt to catch up, Lucy instinctively chose the path now sealed off by the door. Realizing her mistake too late, Lucy found herself in a different section of the ship, the sounds of her companion's footsteps replaced by the eerie silence of the Marine vessel. Panic set in as she called out, her voice echoing off the thick metal walls. "Mom? Uncle Zoro? Uncle Sabo?" But there was no response, just the echo of her own voice in the empty corridor. Hancock, sensing the absence of her daughter, turned back, her heart dropping as she realized Lucy was no longer in sight. "Lucy," she called out, her voice filled with fear. The group retraced their steps, but Lucy was nowhere to be found. The realization that Lucy had become separated in the ship's maze-like structure filled Hancock with a dread unlike any she had felt before. Sabo, witnessing the distress in Hancock's eyes, moved past her in a hurry to continue retracing their steps. "I'll find her," he promised, his voice steady. "You two keep moving, Luffy needs us." Hancock, torn between the need to find her husband and protect her daughter, hesitated. The decision was agonizing, but she knew Sabo was right. "Find my daughter," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the lump in her throat. Lucy, meanwhile, pressed on, determined to find her way back. Her training had prepared her for many challenges, but the cold, impersonal corridors of the marine ship were unlike any enemy she had faced. Each step took her further into the unknown, her resolve tested with every turn. The realization that she was truly alone on an enemy vessel weighed heavily on her, but thoughts of her father and the need to reunite with her family spurred her on. As she rounded a corner, the sound of a voice, so achingly familiar, yet strained with pain, pierced the silence. "Dad!" The word burst from her, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Her feet barely touched the ground as she sprinted towards the source, every thought of caution abandoned. The holding cell loomed before her, a grim cage of sea prism bars and sea prism stone. And there, within its confines, battered and bruised but unmistakably her father, was Luffy. The sight of him, so vulnerable and broken, filled Lucy with a tumult of emotions. Relief, love, and a fierce determination to free him. "Dad, hold on." But her moment of elation was shattered as a figure stepped out from the darkness, a man whose very presence seemed to radiate malice. Akainu, with his eyes like burning coals and a smile that spoke of cruelty, moved with a predator's grace. Before Lucy could react, his hand shot out, grasping her with a strength that brooked no resistance. "Dad," his voice was a low growl, dripping with contempt. With the realization dawning on him, Akainu turned to Luffy, still gripping Lucy by the back of her neck, causing pain to radiate through her body. "So, this must be the treasure you were hoping to get back to. The Pirate King has a daughter, who looks like Boa Hancock no less." Lucy struggled against his hold, her training kicking in as she attempted to break free, but the vice-like grip only tightened, pain shooting all throughout her. "Let me go," she choked out, her voice echoing defiantly in the confined space. Akainu's sneer widened as he held Lucy effortlessly, his gaze shifting to Luffy, who had risen to his feet, his expression full of rage. "Ah, the king of the pirates and his little princess," Akainu taunted, his words laced with venom. "A touching reunion, don't you think?" Luffy's eyes burned with fiery intensity, the sight of his daughter in the clutches of his enemy igniting a fury within him. "Akainu," he roared, the chains rattling as he strained against his restraints, every muscle tensed in a futile attempt to reach his daughter. But the sea prism stone kept him powerless to protect his daughter. The realization that he could do nothing but watch was like watching Ace powerless against Akainu. "Let her go," he demanded, the words full of pain that went beyond the physical. Akainu's gaze locked with Luffy's, a dark promise in his eyes. "You're in no position to make demands," he said coldly. "But maybe we can strike a deal. Come with me quietly as planned, and I'll let her go." His grip on Lucy tightened, a clear threat. Lucy's eyes met her father's, a silent plea for him not to agree. However, the fear of what Akainu might do if he refused was palpable. "Daddy, please. Don't," she whispered, wishing they could just leave this horrible place together. Luffy's expression was one of pure anguish, torn between his instinct to protect his daughter and the knowledge that complying with Akainu could mean the end for him. But the sight of Lucy so vulnerable helped him make up his mind. "All right," he said, the defeat in his voice belying the storm of rage within him. As Luffy's reluctant agreement hung in the air, a heavy silence fell over the holding cell. His eyes never left Lucy, a silent vow that he would protect her, no matter the cost. However, before he could react, Akainu moved with a cruel swiftness, striking Lucy and knocking her unconscious in one brutal motion. Her body went limp in his grasp before he carelessly dropped her to the ground. Luffy's roar of rage was a raw, primal sound that echoed off the steel walls. "You promised you'd let my daughter go," he bellowed, the chains clinking violently as he fought against them with every ounce of his remaining strength. Akainu, unfazed, looked form with disdain. "I did let her go. I'm not holding her anymore, am I?" His voice dripped with mockery, the words a twisted fulfillment of his promise. The sight of Lucy, unconscious and vulnerable, ignited a fury in Luffy that burned hotter than any flame. He continued to struggle against his restraints with a desperation born of love and anger, the sea prism stone the only thing keeping him from tearing Akainu apart. Luckily, Sabo's arrival was like a meteor striking the steel heart of the marine ship, his presence bringing a surge of heat that countered the cold oppression of the metallic corridors. Flames licked the air around him as he took in the grim scene. Lucy lying unconscious on the cold floor, and Luffy restrained by chains of sea prism stone that leached away his legendary strength. "Luffy, Lucy!" Sabo's voice was a battle cry as he rushed to Lucy's side, dropping to one knee. He swiftly checked her for injuries, his hands careful but shaking with barely suppressed rage. He reassured himself with a soft sigh as he felt the steady rise and fall of her chest. She was alive. Turning his fierce gaze upon Akainu, Sabo's aura blazed with an intensity that caused the air around him to shimmer with heat. "You'll pay for this, Akainu," he growled, the flames around him crackling with his anger. "I'm not letting you take another brother from me. Not now, not ever." Akainu stood with that infuriating calmness, his expression unreadable as the magma within him simmered. "Trying to be the hero, Sabo? You're out of your league," he taunted, his voice as cold as the steel underfoot. But Sabo wasn't deterred. His memories of Ace, of their promises fueled his resolve. He clenched his fists, the flames encasing them growing brighter, hotter, mirroring the fury in his heart. "Your fight is with me now," he declared, his stance firm as he braced himself. The ensuing battle was cataclysmic. Sabo launched himself at Akainu, his fists alight with roaring flames. Each strike was a mix of grief and fury, a physical manifestation of his pain and anger. Akainu countered with blasts of magma, the two forces colliding with explosive power that echoed through the ship's corridors. Sabo dodged a particularly vicious magma fist, rolling to the side before springing up and launching a counterattack. "For Ace!" he shouted, each punch punctuated with the name of his fallen brother. The fight was not just a battle of powers but of wills, as each warrior channeled their deepest reserves of strength and resolve. Akainu was relentless, his magma attacks designed to overwhelm and destroy. Yet, Sabo's agility and fire proved to be an equal match. The dance of their battle was brutal, a clash of fire and magma that lit the corridor with their fury. Finally, with a surge of desperate strength, Sabo managed to land a series of blows that pushed Akainu back. His final strike, a massive fireball, sent Akainu crashing against the wall. The impact shook the ship, the sound of Akainu's defeat ringing loud in the now silent corridor. Breathing heavily, Sabo stood over his fallen foe, his flames dimming but his eyes still burning with a fierce light. "Stay away from my family," he whispered, his voice hoarse but resolute. He turned back to his family, his duty as clear as the flames that still flickered in his palms. As the clamor of battle subsided into a haunting silence, Sabo turned his attention to Luffy, tossing him the key to remove the sea prism stone cuffs that had him bound for what seemed like an eternity. Luffy, visibly worn yet relieved, offered a weak smile that spoke volumes of his gratitude towards his brother. With the cuffs removed, Luffy staggered over to where Lucy lay motionless. He knelt beside her, his voice tender with concern as he gently shook her. "Lucy, hey, Luce. Come on, open your eyes. It's okay now," he coaxed, his tone a soft murmur filled with paternal love and worry. No response came from Lucy, her stillness a stark contrast to the chaos that had just unfolded. With no care towards his own injuries, Luffy's arms enveloped Lucy, cradling her as tears filled his own eyes. Moments later, Hancock and Zoro arrived at the scene, the gravity of the situation halting them in their tracks. Hancock's gaze instantly found her family. The sight of Luffy holding their unresponsive daughter caused her heart to plummet into despair. Hancock. Luffy's hoarse whisper broke the silence, his voice strained with desperation. She won't wake up. The pain in Luffy's voice shattered Hancock's composure. She dropped to her knees beside them, reaching out to caress Lucy's cheek. Her touch gentle yet filled with a mother's desperate hope. "Lucy, please. Wake up, my baby," she implored, her voice cracking under the weight of her fear and love. Zoro, maintaining a respectful distance, remained vigilant, his gaze flitting between the somber family scene and Sabo, who stood quietly to the side. Memories of past hurts involving his own children surfaced, causing his jaw to tighten with empathetic pain. "Luffy, what happened?" Hancock's whisper was urgent, demanding yet fearful of the answers it might invoke. Her tear-filled eyes searched Luffy's for any sign of reassurance, any hint that this nightmare might be reversible. Luffy met her gaze, his eyes swimming with regret and sorrow. "Akainu," he murmured bitterly, the name laced with venom. "He promised to let her go if I surrendered. I thought I could save her." Hancock's initial flash of anger at Akainu's deceit was quickly smothered by her overriding concern for Lucy and Luffy. "That vile, impudent man," she stated coldly, the fury in her voice tempered by her overwhelming worry. Zoro stepped closer, his expression somber. "We should get going, and we'll make sure Lucy is taken care of. Chopper's already setting up," he assured them, then glanced at Luffy with concern. "And you need to be checked over too, Captain." Nodding gratefully, Hancock wiped away her tears. "Let's get them back to the ship," she declared, her voice steadying with determination. After ensuring that Akainu was securely bound with the sea prism chains, Zoro turned to gently scoop Lucy into his arms. His movements were gentle, every action calculated to comfort and secure her as much as possible. Meanwhile, Sabo helped Luffy to his feet, supporting the weakened Pirate King with a steady arm. Hancock took the lead as they navigated their way back to the Thousand Sunny. As the group approached the Sunny, the sight of the ship was like a beacon of hope. Chopper, with his medical bag already open and ready, rushed to Lucy's side once they stepped foot on the deck. "Let me take a look at her, Zoro. We need to assess her injuries immediately," Chopper said, his professional calm doing little to mask the urgency in his voice. Robin, Olivia, and Kenji hovered close by, their faces etched with worry. Olivia reached out to gently brush a strand of hair from Lucy's face, her own hands trembling slightly. "You're going to be okay, Lucy," she murmured, trying to comfort her friend despite her own fear. Meanwhile, Sabo laid Luffy down carefully, with Hancock by his side immediately. She took Luffy's hand in hers, squeezing it gently, her face close to his as if her presence could give him back his strength. "Hang in there, my love," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Chopper moved between Lucy and Luffy, his efficiency a testament to his skills and the seriousness of the situation. "We need to get them both to the infirmary right now," he directed, looking to Zoro to assist with moving Luffy while he moved Lucy. As they moved, Sabo kept a watchful eye on the perimeter, his distrust for their surroundings evident. "I'll make sure no one follows us from my ship. We can't afford any more surprises," he said, his tone grim. Once in the infirmary, Chopper took over completely, his orders crisp and clear as he began his examinations. "I need complete silence," he stated. "Robin, help me with Lucy. Olivia, please prepare the medical supplies. Zoro, I need you to stand by with the blue," as the crew worked tirelessly around him. Luffy's consciousness flickered, his eyes briefly meeting Hancock's. In that fleeting moment, there was an exchange of unspoken words. A shared strength despite the dire circumstances. Outside the infirmary, the rest of the crew waited anxiously for any news, their faces a mixture of hope and fear. This was more than just a battle for survival. It was a fight for their family, for everything they held dear. The night stretched on, each minute passing with excruciating slowness as they awaited the outcome of Chopper's efforts to save Luffy and help Lucy. As dawn eventually painted the sky with streaks of pink and gold, the infirmary on the Thousand Sunny became a quiet scene of recovery. Inside, Chopper continued his vigilant care, relieved to see the conditions of his patients stabilizing. Hancock sat beside Luffy, holding his hand gently, watching over him as he finally souped to a peaceful sleep, his breathing steady and unlabored for the first time since the ordeal began. Lucy's eyes fluttered open, the haze of sleep dissipating into confusion and sudden fear. She felt an unfamiliar pressure around her neck and, in a moment of disoriented panic, her hands flew up to claw at it, her breathing quick and shallow. There was no call for her mother, just a stifled gasp of terror as she wrestled with the sensation of being restrained. Hancock, who had been sitting quietly beside Luffy, sensed the shift in the room's energy and turned sharply towards Lucy. Seeing her daughter's distress, she moved swiftly, her chair scraping softly against the floor. As she reached Lucy's side, she gently grasped her daughter's hands, pulling them away from her neck. "Lucy, sweetheart, it's okay, you're safe," Hancock soothed, her voice a calm anchor in the tumult of Lucy's panic. "You're feeling the brace. It's there to help you, not harm you. There's no danger here." Lucy's eyes, wide and brimming with unshed tears, locked onto Hancock's. The fear began to ebb slowly as her mother's words penetrated the fog of her nightmare. Her breaths, once shallow and rapid, started to deepen and slow as Hancock began to stroke back Lucy's hair in a soothing manner. "Chopper put it there to help keep your head steady while your neck heals," Hancock explained further, her thumb now stroking Lucy's cheek comfortingly. "You're on the sunny, with me. Akainu isn't here, you're safe." The reassurance washed over Lucy in waves, her body gradually relaxing as the reality of safety replaced the shadows of her fear. She leaned back against her pillows, the fight draining out of her as she allowed herself to trust in her mother's presence and protection. "I was so scared. It felt like he was still holding me," Lucy whispered, the pain in her throat causing her voice to be hoarse. Hancock pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down, her expression softening with empathy. She reached out, once again, to gently smooth back Lucy's hair, her touch tender. "I know, my love, but you're safe now. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Comforted by her mother's touch and the safety of her words, Lucy allowed her eyes to close momentarily, taking solace in the warmth of Hancock's presence. "Mom, can you hold me?" she asked, slowly shifting to the side making room for her mother. Without hesitation, Hancock rose from her chair and carefully slid onto the bed beside Lucy. As she wrapped her arms around her daughter, Lucy turned into her embrace, careful of her brace. "Of course, my love," Hancock whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She held her daughter close, causing Lucy's body to fully relax, the tension unwinding as she felt the protective circle of Hancock's arms. "Everything's going to be all right," Hancock continued to reassure, her hand gently stroking Lucy's back in slow, soothing circles. "You're strong, just like your father. And just like him, you're surrounded by people who love you and will always look out for you." Lucy's breathing deepened, steadied by her mother's presence and the security it brought. "I was so scared, Mom," Lucy confessed, her voice muffled against Hancock's chest. Hancock tightened her embrace, her lips pressing a soft kiss onto the top of Lucy's head. "So was I, but we are together, we are safe. Let's just rest now," Hancock continued softly. "I promise your father and I will still be here when you wake." Lucy nodded against her mother, her eyes still closed, her body heavy with exhaustion but lightening with each moment spent in her mother's arms. They remained that way, mother and daughter, holding on to each other, as the world outside continued on, unaware of the small, profound healing occurring in the heart of the Thousand Sunnies Infirmary.